After a few weekends apart, myself and Michael Verney were back together, and that music, look, it just gets us all going for the show. Let us know out there, is this your favourite team music since the Sunday game? Michael, how's tricks?
All good, Shane. Yeah, all good. One of the days you were away, I think I couldn't hear the music, and I forgot to turn it off. So I think it was playing for about the first 5 minutes of the show. But with that sort of tune, who could complain? In all honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a reminder, we're brought to you by OurGame.com. If you want to use the promo code OurGame, you get 15% off. There is a huge amount of stunning jerseys there. Even maybe this Watford one. We know what the Watford hurling final is going to be, and we'll be chatting about that soon. The semi-finals are at the weekend, and the first round of the Mayo Football Championship just took place there. But we've so much to talk about. We were actually even just going through the matches that are coming this weekend, that just occurred this past weekend. There's so many of them, hard to know where to start. But I'll tell you what, I did tweet last night asking people what did they think was their moment of the weekend. Now, obviously, so much happened, but I'll just bring up the tweet thread here. We'll have a quick little look through just to see what people were saying. So Ballyhale Note says, Tommy Walsh coming on for Tullaroan and whipping over a point to help his team to victory, followed closely by Tommy Walsh coming on. And that was against Ballyhale Shamrocks. Nolik Heffernan says, Killer 1 guard of honour for Clonody after the match this afternoon, both classy and poignant. Jack Nulty depends. Probably people say Walsh or Kilmacuds, maybe Lower County. There were good results. Ballymun Kickham's not making the quarter-finals must be the talking point, says Rua Ree. Again, Tommy Walsh mentioned. Burris getting bet, says Aisling B. Obviously driving the boot into me because Burris and Lee are gone after losing to Drummond Inch. Needed to win by 12, didn't win at all. David Ryan, Shin beating St. Ryan, as we'll be talking about awfully. Callanan's point from 100 yards for Drum, back to goal, touch on the hurley, and bang, says David Ryan. I saw that, it was unbelievable. Shane Considine agrees. And James Forbes says Mount Sion getting back to the final in Waterford, first time since 2014. So, do you know, something else I want to talk about is, I obviously you don't watch that much soccer, but over the weekend, there was a lot of controversy about VAR. And like we've talked many times about, should video evidence be brought into GAA in terms of scores and red cards and all that kind of stuff. But they have the video evidence, and even now there's war over it because the interpretation of the referees, or let's say a referee on the pitch, Man United played Arsenal yesterday, and there was a supposed foul on Christian Eriksen that was let go. Goal was scored by Martinelli. They went to the screens then. Basically, the referee was told, have a look at this. And anytime he's told to have a look at it, it's generally overturned. So a goal for Arsenal was overturned. So I'm just wondering, should we be tread very carefully if we're looking at this idea of VAR? Because it's not like the Premier League is having the most kind of smooth run with it.
Well, yeah, I would definitely be treading carefully, and I would have even been treading carefully on bringing a black card into hurling when it can have more controversy than not, even in football. So I would definitely be treading carefully on it. And sometimes with these things, you have to be careful what you wish for as well. And we can end up with these, like, it's just a weekly thing in the Premier League. And as you say, I don't watch a hell of a lot of it, but I did kind of hear a lot of the controversy about it yesterday. And you know, we don't need the game being stopped for a couple of minutes if a decision isn't made, or if the incorrect decision is made, or if it's blatantly obvious that something needs to be changed. But after looking at the video evidence and it's not changed, that's even more frustrating than the initial decision itself. So we do need to be careful, I would say, in that respect. I still don't see it coming in any respect in the GA for a while. You look at Hawkeye. Hawkeye must be in probably the guts of a decade, I'd say, at this stage. And we haven't really advanced on from that. And we only have it in 2 grounds in the country as well. So, like, generally we are quite slow and take our time to, make these changes. And the success or lack thereof of VAR in soccer would not exactly be rushing you to bring it in the GA.
Yeah, another thing that happened over the weekend is the most famous Gaelic footballer in Ireland was at the Celtic Rangers match. Let's have a little look here. There's David Clifford meeting Ange Postecoglou and one other person there as well.
Great pronunciation, by the way. Very good pronunciation of the Celtic boss's name.
Yeah, and you know what? When I interviewed David Clifford a few months back, he was talking about how good Postecoglou was doing. Matty Kenny was also at this game as well, I noticed, and I think he was in a photo with the likes of Clifford. I think the likes of Tom O'Sullivan, obviously the cornerback for Kerry, Micheál Burns, and a few more were there as well. Should we go through a couple of the comments there? Do you want to run through a couple of them?
Yeah, we'll try to fly through a few of them. Obviously, loads of action over the weekend. Cash is King says Shamrocks Ballyhale v Glenmore will be a tasty affair in Kilkenny first round. Bob Aylward, who's over Glenmore, is Ballyhale man to the absolute core. Yeah, and that's going to be a big game. That's in the first round proper. I think that's in the first round / relegation is on in 2 weeks' time. So assuming that game is on the same weekend. Richard Hogan just says, if it's played in Mullinvat, the tight nature of the ground will make it even tastier. Very true. Shane Power, no better man than the buff telling Mount Sion kids to shush in Walsh Park yesterday. I saw that. True GA hero. The old Ashush came out a few times yesterday, definitely, in Walsh Park. Richard Hogan makes a great comparison. The first thing I thought of as well, shades of Owen Quigley's point in 05 about Callan's point. Would love to see the two of them split screen together just to compare the two of them. But Callan's point was an absolute peach yesterday. And as you said, the keeper scored. The keeper ended up scoring from play as well in that game too, from around about his own 21.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a win behind Owen Collins, but what a strike it was. He was winding up on the 21. He had probably just maybe made one step outside it and just drove it over from some distance. Incredible score. But the difference between Callan's one and Owen Quigley's one is Quigley's was a little bit closer because he was right at the centre of midfield when he made the touch. You know, he's right at that line where the throw-in happens, turn and struck. But he wasn't facing the goal. Callan was kind of faced so that his right, like he was kind of faced, towards the middle stand. So his right shoulder, we'll say, was facing towards his own goal. Left shoulder was faced towards the Burris-Lee goal. So he had a touch and struck, but from his own 65. So in one way, it was slightly easier in that when he touched it, he was already kind of facing the direction he'd want to be facing. But the other side is he knocked it from a further distance. But it was an incredible score. And he was having a quiet game. Like Ray McCormick was having a great game on him. But just late on when it mattered, he got a couple of scores. And that one was an absolute beaut.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'll just fly through another couple of comments here. Fergus Butler, Owen Rua hurlers caused a shock by beating Lavi 4-13 to 23 points in the Derry Championship. That looks like an absolute belter. Ended up 25 points to 23. Christopher Conlon, Shamey Conlon's point was outrageous when he hit the ball off the hurl without catching. It surely was. Richard Hogan says the Verney chop. I presume he's referring to a haircut.
Yeah, you kind of. It looks like,
to be fair,
it's kind of got a Lego man feeling to it that you could just plug your hair on and off.
Liam Sheedy, the Lego man. I always thought he looked very like the Lego man. Andrew Sullivan just said in reference to Hawkeye, and Hawkeye has been brutal this last year. Definitely, there's more controversy about Hawkeye this year, probably in the previous 7 or 8 that it's been in. Andrew Sullivan also says the green and red suits you, Mike. Listen, it wasn't by coincidence that I'm wearing green and red. The Burr Seniors had a good win at the weekend in the county semi-final now, which we'll talk about later on. Darrow Flynn, journalist down in Waterford, says Ballygunner dominance in Waterford with their senior, intermediate and junior team all in the county finals this weekend. That is some going. I think De La Salle beat them in the minor league final, which ended a bit of a run for Ballygunner. I think it was 17 points to 111, and I saw a few of the De La Salle lads out with the buff on the pitch at half-time yesterday, but definitely Ballygunner's dominance shows no sign of abating, as we'll talk about, I'm sure, a bit today, and we'll definitely be looking in fairly forensically at it on Thursday, because with it being the only county final, I think probably of the weekend, we'll go in fairly hard on it.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Ben O'Connor being appointed the under-20 manager for Cork on a 2-year term. And just to talk about his backroom team, the legend Ronan Curran, obviously the number 6 for Cork for a long spell. Gerard Regan, Anthony Nash, former goalkeeper as well. So that's that side of things covered, you'd imagine, the restarts and so on. And Terence McCarthy, they're all in as selectors. But you and I were definitely impressed by Ben O'Connor and what he did, taking Middleton to the county senior county title last year. And even before that, doing quite well with Charleville, getting them into, I think he won the Cork Intermediate and actually won Munster as well.
Yeah. All-Ireland, beating an All-Ireland final, yeah. I've chatted to Ben a couple of times. I said the one thing you're guaranteed with Ben is that he'll pull no punches and he'll be brutally honest if there is a need to be brutally honest with these lads, and he'll get the most out of them. I remember him saying to me about Cork a couple of years ago that too many lads were interested in getting on the scoreboard and didn't have enough lads that were to go for the throat. And if you look at it in recent years, they've probably gotten a bit closer to going for the throat. Maybe they go for the throat nearly too much now. But he's getting his chance at a county level. Stars of the team there. It's funny. Another guy who went for the job obviously was Diarmuid O'Sullivan. Diarmuid O'Sullivan probably had a few pops at what looked like Anthony Nash in his role in the media over the last year or so since finishing up with Cork. So there was probably a small bit of tension between a couple of the parties who were going for the job there. But it's a pretty star-studded team. As you say, Ben was coach at Middleton. He was manager with Charleville. Has served a really good apprenticeship. He's got a really good side there as well to work with. So I would have had him in the reckoning for the Cork senior job. So it's only natural that he should be heavily involved in one of the other marquee teams. Doesn't get any bigger than the under-20s, and I'd expect him to go fairly well under him. He will call it as he sees it, and look at it, like Middleton were probably the nearly men for 7 or 8 years maybe before he came involved with them last year, got them over the line, and I'm sure steeliness will be the one thing I think he'll be trying to get into this Cork under-20 team.
Yeah, and obviously we haven't seen Cork play under Pat Ryan yet, but I'm very interested to see what he does. Obviously, he had all that success with the under-20s when he was over them, but I do believe that there's an All-Ireland in this Cork team, assuming that they do the right things which would obviously mean cutting out the stick passes in the middle of the field when they're getting turned over needlessly so often, and using the hand pass a bit smarter, because they have all the speed in the world, they have all the ball strikers in the world. But anyway, we'll go on and talk about the Waterford senior hurling.
I just quickly, Shane, I'm fascinated to see what he does at number 3. I'm really fascinated to see what he does at number 3, and I'm fascinated to see what he does with Mark Coleman as well, and just how he gets that defence really, really solid. And to me, who he puts in at number 3 will be fascinating. I think they have, providing he stays fit, I think they have a centre back for the next decade in Kieran Joyce. I really do. I thought, even as a rookie this year, I thought he was brilliant at centre back, and I think it was a good move even shoving him in there when they did, because he will only get better and that experience will only stand to him. But I suppose I said about Ben O'Connor and steeliness with the under-20s, that steeliness with the Cork seniors, and whether Pat Ryan can input that into them, I think is going to be fascinating. They've all the hurlers, they've loads of speed, they've a lot of what you need at inter-county level. There's still a couple of ingredients missing though, and it's going to be fascinating to see how they go over the next couple of years under him.
Yeah, I really do like Kieran Joyce. I think he's a great talent, but I think there's probably a bit of development to go there, but obviously physically as to get bigger, and also I think positionally, the more you play that position, especially at that level, the more you'll get attuned to it. But I think there's probably a way to go just yet, but that's not doubting the level of talent there, and obviously the talent coming through. But Mount Sion are back into the Waterford final for the first time since 2014. It seems like an incredibly long time for a club of their stature and their storied history to not be in a final. And De La Salle obviously put up a great fight there. It was 119 to 212 for a finish. And you couldn't say that Ozzie Gleeson, who's been in brilliant form, dominated this game. It was probably other players that stepped up. And I'd say Jack Fagan, gave probably the performance of the game for De La Salle in defeat.
Yeah, Jack Fagan was brilliant from the clips I saw. He was absolutely outstanding. He even got back and got a big flick on Gleeson down in the corner in the second half at one stage. But it was, as it has been probably for a good while, Martin Blondie O'Neill stepped up again. He hit 1-3 from play. I think they were 9 points to 6 up at half time. He stretched their advantage to 6 just at the start of the second half. De La Salle got 2 goals. Eddie Meany with 1. Ruben Halloran, who's been really good in the championship for De La Salle. And it looked like maybe it was turning a small bit in De La Salle's favour when it was 117 to 212. But Mount Sion finished off with the last 2 points for a good win, because the pressure was probably on them in this game. They're city rivals. They were probably on form, the one team that people are saying could potentially lay it down to Ballygunner, but they had to book their place. They had to do the business and get the chance to do that, and they've done that now. And maybe there's some signs of hope in Ballygunner's win over Rowanmore. Probably started quite slowly in that. Rowanmore were 6 points to 3 up after about 15 minutes until Desi Hutchinson got a goal. I think that's his 15th championship goal for Ballygunner, considering he's only back 3 or 4 years. 15 championship goals is some going. And I believe you were saying there that Peter Quealy's side, Rowanmore, actually went man-to-man with Ballygunner, which is hugely admirable, because the default when you're playing a team like that is usually to go the other way and potentially, set up with your sweeper, even though Ballygunner are going to set up with their sweeper. I think they pushed up. They asked them some questions early on. Be interesting to see if Mount Sion learn anything from that. But you'd probably say Ballygunner are probably going to be ready if Mount Sion do something similar. Plus, it's all grand going man to man, and Romore obviously did a good job of it for a good while, but you're leaving yourself like with the possibility of being absolutely wide open at the other end. But Romore, again, I read an interview with Peter Queally during the week. He said, that they wouldn't lie down to Ballygunner. They definitely didn't, but I don't know whether it was a mix of Ballygunner just getting the strong hand on them in the second half, or Rowan run now a juice, because Ballygunner just streaked away in the last 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, when you put it this way, Rowan started well and were 6 points to 3 ahead, but they just lost the rest of the game by 2-14 to 6 points. And I think there is a case of you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, in terms of like, do you push up or do you drop back? Because if you drop back a sweeper, Ballygunner will obviously play the ball around in the half back line, and they've so many county quality players that are also composed on the ball. They know how to work it around. They have a very athletic midfield in Paddy Levy and in Conor Sheehan. They've so many class players all over the pitch. So you're, in a way, you nearly have to sort of consider the idea of going man-to-man, because you just don't want the ball thrown around you, and you don't get tackles in because they're always popping it over your head. So I kind of understand from that point of view why Queally would manage that. I don't really blame them. It's a tough one either way, but it's very dispiriting for teams to feel like you've started that well and then just put up a total of 12 points. These days in hurling, you're probably going to have to score 25 points minimum, and it's probably on an upward trajectory as well. The other thing is, like, it's 47 games unbeaten for Ballygunner now, so they're probably like 6 or 8 points ahead of a team before they even get going. Now, Mount Sion pushed them really close last year, but they have this thing, I'd say, just even mentally, if it comes into the last 5 minutes, because they've done it so many times, Ballygunner, there's always going to be a coolness. Whereas with other teams, when you're chasing them and trying to get over the line, it's probably like white line fever has to come into play a little bit. So if Mount Sion are going to get this done next weekend, they're going to have to hurl well above and beyond themselves. And obviously, Ozzie Gleeson is going to have the game of his life.
Yeah, 100%. As you say there, when a team, they're so seasoned now, they have that All-Ireland final win under their belt, that kind of monkey off their back. It's like the Dubs, it's in their pomp. It's like Limerick at the moment. They just never think they're beaten, no matter what sticky situation they're in. There's a resolve there. There's a muscle memory there to know we won't panic in this situation. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. And like, I know it's a boring word, but all the great teams have a process that they stick to. Dublin had it, Limerick have it, Ballygunner have it. Very methodical, very systematic. There's a safety in that. There's a knowledge that knowing that if we keep doing this, mightn't work in the first half, but if we keep doing and keep following what we're supposed to be doing, it will eventually pay off. And yeah, an awful lot's going to have to go right for Mount Sion. And plus the fact that that element of surprise from last year is probably gone now. And I just from the mindset of the Ballygunner lads, they will want to, I just, even from chatting some of them and chatting people close, they won't even want Mount Sion in the game. They will want this like dead and buried after 15 or 20 minutes. And if you look back historically in recent years, they've generally saved their best performance of the Waterford Championship for the final. And yeah, I don't know what it is. People down in Waterford will often tell you that they know the cameras are on. This is our time to deliver. And they have, in the last couple of years, really comprehensive over Romore last year, really comprehensive over Passage the year previous, and they'll be looking to do something similar on Sunday.
Yeah, do you know, I'm looking at the weather forecast going all the way up till Sunday next week, and it's rain pretty much every day. And maybe for Mount Sion, that's what they need, a dirty old day, because if it's in good conditions, generally Ballygunner are going to come out on top because they've got the A hand here. Even Patrick Fitzgerald coming through this year, he scored a great goal. They'd have probably loved to have used him last season, but obviously he just wasn't old enough. By the way, just a reminder that we have the OurGame coaching clinic. This is for hurling and camogie, coming up in UCD on September the 16th. So that's just 11 days away there, €40, and three brilliant sessions coming from Martin Fogarty, Kieran Carey and Matty Kenny. That's all going to be on-pitch stuff, practical stuff that you can take back and improve your team with. So either scan the QR code, or just follow the link in the video description, and you'll find it on my Twitter at Shane Saint. So that should be a brilliant event, and tickets are selling out there. So I'd actually be advising that you have a look soon before they completely sell out.
Just on that, Shane, I was actually over in Vancouver with Kieran for 5 days. We were over doing a show with the JP Rhines Club over in Vancouver, and he took a session with Brendan Cummins and Eddie Brennan the next night. And it clearly paid off because the JP Ryans ended up winning the first ever Canadian National Championship last weekend. And I know there was a lot of them saying that they listened to the show. So big shout out to the JP Ryans lads. And anybody that goes to that clinic will get a treat from Kieran Carey anyway. And you know Matty and Martin Fogarty fairly well too. So lots of nuggets for any aspiring coaches.
Absolutely. Shane Powers says De La Salle missed a lot of chances in the game, which ultimately cost them. He also adds, criminal how Desi was left completely unmarked in the large rectangle for his goal, possibly the one player in the country you just can't leave in his own in that situation. Richard Hogan adds, Ballysaggart made it to the Waterford intermediate final. Last gasp, Shane Bennett point. Mount Sion have got there now. If they can get a good start next weekend, then maybe there might be a shock on the cards. It's also worth mentioning...
On Ballysaggart, Shane, it looked like time was up in that game. And was the referee allowed for one puck out? And it's just amazing in hurling. The game was level. Puck out. Shane Bennett catches left hand side, left wing over the bar. Game is over. Ballysaggart win by a point. He's obviously still around, and I believe Kieran Bennett is still around as well, and that they're staying around until the end of the club campaign. They're playing Ballygunner this weekend now, so that's going to be interesting. But hurling is amazing, and I'd never be a referee, particularly after the events in Roscommon last week. But you can think, I'll just allow a puck out to happen here. After what could happen? Game over. Someone scores a point, and there's a winner rather than extra time.
Sure wasn't it the same in Kilkenny Galway this year in the group game? In the Watford relegation final, Tallow beat Dunhill 119 to 18 points, and Tomas McCarthy, local journalist there, said Tommy Ryan has been the most exciting player to watch in this year's Waterford Senior Hurling Championship. 247 in 5 matches. Now, I remember a couple of years ago when we were talking about him, we were surprised that he was in or around 30. So he's probably early 30s at this stage, but I see some of the comments saying, give him a recall. And if the likes of Shane Bennett isn't going to be around, or Kieran Bennett next year, probably do worse than a man who put up that sort of tally this year.
He came on and got a point in the 2017 All-Ireland final when it looked like the tide was turning in Watford's favour. Be interesting to see what way Davy goes about it, whether he looks at it potentially as a year in isolation, or he looks at it as he's building a squad for 2 to 3 years and there's younger players involved. Shane Power just corrected me there. Kieran Bennett has gone to Australia already, so Ballysaggart don't have him. Shane is still around. Kieran obviously won't be involved with Watford next year, nor will Shane. And Shane just says as well that he wasn't in the Saggart squad yesterday. They're like, Ballysaggart are literally picking from they're not picking from much, shall we say, but they're maxing out. I still think there's 3 Bennett brothers. There's obviously Shane, Stephen, and there's a younger brother. His name escapes me. He's about 19 years old as well. So they still have the 3 of them. And I know, chatting their father, Pat, one of his proudest things about the lads is that they always deliver at club level, and they're clearly delivering now, and they'll be hoping that they can deliver again at the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about the Tipperary Senior Hurling Championship this after this weekend. I'll just run through.
You sure you're happy enough to talk about it? Yeah.
Not really. No, we're not really at all. But anyway, I'll go through the results and then you can drive the boot in, because I'd say you're only waiting to do it. Upperchurch beat Toomevara 116 to 16 points. So that's Upperchurch through top of that group. Holy Cross Ballycahill beat CJ Kickham's Mullinahone 126 to 16 points. So I think that plunges Mullinahone into relegation bother. Drummond Inch beat Bursley 115 to 17. Kilwan McDonough's beat Clonoulty Rossmore 315 to 120. That was a late on winner there for Kilwan, and that was obviously the fixed game after, of course, Dylan Quirk sadly passed away during that game a couple of weeks ago. Lockmore Castleiney, despite being down Ed Connolly and John McGrath, they beat Aero Gannacarty Donahill 121 to 117. Killadangan beat JK Brackens 313 to 114. And Thurles Sarsfields didn't have it all their own way against Templederry Kenyans 219 to 213. So the preliminary quarterfinals, it's obviously going to go to quarterfinals, but because a couple of teams won their divisional championship and didn't come through the group, there's preliminary quarterfinals now, which means Clonoulty Rossmore will meet Thurles Sarsfields and JK Brackens will meet Nina Ayr Oak. So start driving the boot in.
No, to be fair, I don't like driving the boot in over club activity, because I think it's different. Like, I don't mind. Like, I've no hatred at all for Bursley. I quite like Bursley, to be honest with you. But
they don't like you.
Yeah, but he missed. It sounded like he missed an awful lot of chances early on, and like I don't know if it's in your head that you have to win by 12 points, but once a lot of those chances were missed at the start, it's not, you think you can't win by 12, and then all of a sudden you can't win the game, if you know what I mean. It's kind of a setting off unintended consequences, if you know what I mean. But there's no point in getting away from it. The All-Ireland finalists in 2020 out at this early stage, and must be hugely disappointing, I'd imagine.
Oh, big time. I mean, it was like, it wasn't a bad performance if you took the shooting out of it. Like, the shooting was cruel. I think it was something like 11 wides in the first half, and it was the quality of the wides. They were so poor, and players that you'd expect to knock them over. I know Dan McCormick isn't the most lethal forward in the world, especially at inter-county level, but he missed one from the 21 early on in the game. Kevin Maher had, a pretty good goal chance and put it tamely wide. Brendan Maher had a very under par day on the freeze, and it just kind of gave a little bit of impetus to Drum. Like, Drum were already through. They knew that there was, it would have had to have been a strange series of events for them to get knocked out. I mean, there was a possibility, but they were kind of in a decent position coming into this. But after Burris had that poor start in terms of shooting, Drum got a goal at the other end. It was a long ball. You'd expect somebody to always mind the back door when a high ball is hanging in, coming in towards the square, that somebody would have the sort of forethought to make sure that there's not going to be a goal here. Even if the break is won, we're not going to have a forward getting in goal side and putting into the back of net. And David Collins very cutely did that. And from then on, I think Bursley were just kind of chasing it a little bit, had a nice bit of a burst before half time, but you were never going to win by 12 or 13 points when you didn't have that great start. Like, to me, Bursley should have been 5 or 6 points ahead early on. And if you do get that buffer, all of a sudden you feel like, well, maybe it's on here, get a goal. Maybe Drum just won't fancy it today. But then the likes of Johnny Ryan stepped up with some good scores. Seamus Callan got a couple of nice ones late on. I was a bit frustrated with Burris. I felt too often the full back line were maybe 5 yards behind their men. That happened once or twice. And I mean, this is a game where you concede 16 scores. So it's not like you're being cut open. So I just didn't understand the backs being a little bit off their men. JD Devaney was very good for Bursley. Good performance from him. And, to be fair to Drum, they've won 3 games from 3. They look very solid. Podge Campion holding the defence at centre-back. Johnny Campion, I think there's more to come from him. He's obviously the under-20 captain who played so well for Tipp this year. There's more in this team, and I think they can go pretty far in the championship. But for Bursley, they're gone. Tough first year for Shane O'Neill, John Fitzgerald and Mikey Beavens, who was in coaching. And it's one of those things when you've got a lot of names that people know, and then you've got maybe, I suppose, a high-powered sideline. It just, it's very easy to take pot shots at them there. But realistically, the players on the field had the chances. They didn't convert the chances, and it meant that any chance of putting up a big scoreline wasn't going to happen. So it was just a very disappointing day, but Drum and Inch, fair play to them, deserved it.
And left themselves in a position after previous results where they were going to have to pull out something big in this last round, and it was probably never going to happen. I don't see this happening, but who knows? Shane Power saying for the Dampreen Cup 2023, return of the Mac. I doubt it. I doubt it somehow. If he's ever seen, Mac? I don't know that, but it's just obviously a very, very good song, and any chance to get it in there. Whether this man will ever even see Togs socks and hurling boots again, a hurling hand, we don't even know, but it'll be videoed if it does happen again. I don't see it been in a Bursley jersey somehow. There's a couple of good comments in here just as regards the Limerick Hurling Championship, but we'll get to that in a minute. Shane, you obviously saw a bit more of the Tipp Championship as well. Good win for Killadangan, 313 to 114 over JK Brackens, and I believe you were particularly impressed with one Brackens man who you think might make a mark with Tipp next year.
Yeah, well, look, I've always said that I think Paddy Cadell needs to be tried a bit more, and in the half back line, I don't think midfield really suits him. Not everyone can play midfield. It's a bit of a specialist position. It's not always, but to me, it's a little bit of one. Now, he did make a big mistake, which led to Paul Flynn's goal, and JK Brackens had started well. Now, we must put into context here that Brackens knew that they were already through anyway by dint of winning the mid-championship the first time ever. They always had the back door into the preliminary quarter-final. So that will see them meet Nina, who are the North champions, and play quite well. But Cadell did, he completely missed the ball that was coming to him. A soft little ball was coming to him. He completely let it in behind him, and Paul Flynn went in and scored a goal, which cancelled out Andrew Ormond's goal later on. But Andrew Ormond is another one that I think will be in the Tipp reckoning next year. So the reason that Tipperary are going to need a few players to step up is, number one, obviously Tipp were off the mark this year. They lost all their games in the Munster Championship. Dylan Quirk, so sadly, isn't going to be there next year. He was a player that Tipperary would have been looking to build the team around. He's not going to be available next year, of course. Ronan Maher has a bit of a shin injury, but I think he's going to be back. But Barry Heffernan, he did a cruciate. Craig Morgan did a cruciate. So that's half of the defence from 2022 that probably won't be there. And obviously in Dylan Quirk's case, certainly won't be there in 2023. So that makes it kind of, I think that even opens up the door a little bit more for the likes of Cadell. And I do hope he gets the full league to get an opportunity to really nail down a spot. But Andrew Ormond's another player that I really like. There was a couple of times in the first half where ball went into him at 100 mile an hour and it was touch into the hand and gone. Or he'd set up a score, or he'd knock one over the bar from an unlikely position. And I just think that he's somebody that that Liam Cahill might be looking at. He'd obviously know him pretty well. But you'd have to give Killadangan an awful lot of credit here. After conceding that goal in the first half, I think they just completely dominated the rest of the first half. Joe Gallagher scored a great goal late on. I can't remember who scored the third goal, but Paul Flynn did a lovely lofted stick pass over the top to put that player in behind the cover. And all of a sudden, with Billy Seymour back from America, with Willie Connors back from injury, with Sean Hayes moving well, he wasn't quite as prominent in this game, Ty Gallagher going well in midfield. To me, Killadangan are right up there in terms of the favourites to be winning this title this year.
No, they definitely are, and I think they would have been disappointed with how they went out in the semi-finals last year, and will be keen, having won their first title in 2020, to be keen to get back up there. And they're definitely, it is one of the championships that's, definitely on paper anyway, looks quite wide open, but probably along with Drum, I'd say they're probably two of the pace setters anyway. When they're good, they're very, very good. They threw in an off-colour performance in the semi-final last year. I'm sure they'll be mad keen to atone for that. Just a couple of other little bits and pieces in the Tipp Championship. Upper Church Drumban at a 116 point win over Tumivara. Upper Church were already through, but made it 3 wins from 3. Poor enough game by all accounts. Toom are also through. Toom were 8-6 up at half time. And I think Upper Church Drumban used the sweeper. Gavin Ryan, who was very dominant, partly to do with his own position, partly to do with poor Toom play, and that kind of led to the Upper Church goal from Paddy Green in the 33rd minute as well. Anything else on that game, Shane? We've played Upper Church Drumban a good few times down through the years. Good solid side. I always thought they had the potential to take a scalp and go on a decent run. Probably hasn't really happened yet where they get to a semi-final or something like that, but definitely a bit of potential there. That was a poor game at the weekend though, no point in saying anything. Yeah,
the conditions weren't great, and to be fair, maybe this year's as good as any in terms of making a run. Bursley are gone, Thurles have had their injury issues, Lockmore have had their injury issues, even as I said, Nina have their main man Barry Heffernan out for the year with a cruciate. Craig Morgan has gone from Killer One, so you just don't know. For Toom, Kevin McCarthy, he struggled on the freeze here. Player, obviously he's a good player, but it just didn't happen for him on the freeze. Jack Butler, I thought, was very good, big physical target man for Upper Church here. Used the ball well, had a couple of wides laid on, but other than that was quite good. Aaron Ryan was good from midfield. He scored a couple of points. And Mark McCarthy, must be pointed out, a couple of great sidelines late on when chasing the game. Another game, Holy Cross Ballycahill, comprehensive win over Mullinahone, and I'm sure I'd be interested to hear if there's anyone out there who saw the game, how well Brian O'Mara played, because I know he came back last week and was very good, or a couple of weeks ago against Toom was good. And then also a point in the Premier Intermediate, Thurles B beat Killinall, which would be very disappointing for Killinall, but Bubbles broke his hand there. And again, I'm very interested to see if he does reappear for Tipperary next year. So that's the Tipperary Championship, and keep the comments coming in. And by the way, if you don't follow us already on YouTube, please do follow us there on all the different social channels. It'd be great to have your support there. What about the Westmeath Championship? Castletown Gagan, they're flying it. They beat Castle Pollard 417 to 14 points. Raharney Soft Cullion 30 points to 116, and Clonkill beat Loughlane Gales by 20 points to 110. The Galway Championship, St. Thomas's fairly stuttered, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, yeah, but as is their wont, they were still able to get a result. It finished Thomas's 219, Castlegar 19 points. As you said, a poor performance. Still won the game, still hit 219. David Connors, who journalist for the Tuam Herald, and actually St. Thomas's man, was even said that they got a soft penalty where Conor Cooney was fouled and then finished to the net. And it just said, he said, instead of going in behind, they ended up going in ahead of half time, and then Cashel got a man sent off. And he said it was a 6'3" lad trying to level a 5'9" fella. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see that incident if we could. One of the big takeaways from that game is Ger Farrett was still going strong at 39. He was sensational for Cashel. I think he had 11 points from the middle of the field. Just one of these natural players. We've played them plenty of times up and down. It's really annoying because when they're coming out of defense, he just always seems to be free and always seems to drift into a position, not just where he gets a free strike, but where he gets a free strike on his left-hand side, obviously his favorite left-hand side. And it's a real killer when the ball breaks out and you just know a couple of seconds later, this is probably going to end up with the ball going over the bar. And it generally does. He's still rolling back the years. He was brilliant at the weekend, even in defeat. Just flying back through some of the other games as well. It was level between Capatagal and Crockwell. Crockwell 114, Capatagal 17. Tom Monaghan put over a late equaliser for Crockwell to level it. Crockwell were 6 to 7 points ahead at the break, but were, I think, happy enough probably to get the draw and the wind up. Loughrea, they're absolutely flying. They're 3 from 3 at the moment. Obviously, there's a load of successful Galway minors involved with their squad. They had a comprehensive defeat at Gort, 220 to 113. So Loughrea are 3 from 3. Gort are 0 from 3. So Gort are in big trouble there. Loughrea are absolutely flying it. Anthony Burns got a goal just before the break to put them 112 to 7 points ahead, and they never really looked back thereafter. Probably one of the games of the weekend was Sarsfield's 316, Clarenbridge 122. Clarenbridge are obviously in the county final last year. Thought this was interesting. So it's 3 decades ago that the Cooney brothers, backbone Sarsfields, the consecutive All-Ireland club titles, even though they weren't able to beat Burr in 98. But 3 sons of Joe Cooney helped him to salvage a draw the other day, which is just kind of mad. So Evan Nyland was brilliant as he is for Clarenbridge. But Kevin Cooney got 2 goals to kind of haul Sarsfield back into contention. Then John Cooney hit the net. And then Joseph Cooney hit an absolutely outrageous levelling point. So, like, they didn't exactly lick it from the ground now, being sons of Joe Cooney. But a brilliant result there. Clarenbridge are definitely one of the coming teams. I would say, like, if you're looking at teams that definitely think that they can take out Thomas's, Clarenbridge would be one, and I'd say maybe Turlock would be another, and Turlock would have regrets of that COVID county final in 2020 when Dottie Burke was injured. But that sounded like a belter of a game.
Do you know, on Thursday we spoke with David Connors, who you mentioned of the Tuam Hurl, and we were asking him about Aaron Nyland and how much would Clarenbridge love to have him. But he's still minor again next year, so it'll be a couple of years.
Oh, didn't realise that. Jeez, he's very young, so yeah.
And, you know, I was even thinking, geez, Burris Lee would have loved to have had Paddy McCormick this year. And I'm wondering just if people could get their comments in. Who's a minor out there that clubs would love to be able to use right now this year? Because I'm sure the likes of Patrick Fitzgerald, we already mentioned him for Ballygunner. Like, who is the most outstanding minor that a club team would love to be using right now, both hurling and football, because there has to be lots of them. So get your comments in there. Turlockmore also beat Clymer Daly 220 to 12 points. So that's Turlockmore back on track there. And Tommy Larkins beat Kilkenny 417 to 17 points. So that's the update on Galway.
I know in
Limerick,
the B Championship as well, Portumna made it 3 from 3. Obviously, the B is connected to the A. So if you go well in the B, and Joe Canning was adamant about this, he didn't think it was right that people are making such a big deal about them being relegated to Senior B because they still have a chance of winning the Senior A. And if anything, you probably have a better chance of getting to a quarter final coming from Senior B. Was it a Haskell and I ended up getting to definitely a quarter final anyway, coming all the way from the B a couple of years ago. Remember, they got loads of late goals and real smash and grabs at the end of games. So you probably still have another as good a chance of getting to a quarter final, if not a better chance, coming from the B. And Portumna seem to be bouncing back pretty well. Yeah,
so a couple of comments here about the minor players that would. Well, Shane O'Brien is already playing for Kilmallock and Adam Screeney for Offaly. But I mean, Adam Screeney can't play yet for Kilcormac, can he?
No.
So I'm talking about who's a minor county player that the club would love to be able to use straight away, because I think there's very few inter-county minor players that would be able to step up physically to their county team straight away. So it's more so with the club. And A Sully 180, I think Aaron Nyland isn't 16 until later in the year. What a player he would be. Shane Power says Dan Ravenhill.
Yeah, Dan Ravenhill. Yeah, he larded. We beat Ballymere at the weekend, and just the size of him, he's obviously not like a full-blown man yet, but He's a big lad for minor. He would definitely be a big addition to his club team. Adam Screeney needs probably a good bit of time to develop. He's obviously very diminutive, but he'll probably slip in with the Kilcormac Senior Bs maybe next year, have a year with them, and then probably be ready to play senior after. But if you look at Paddy McCormick, is quite a big fella, and would, not saying that he's not going to go in and play centre back for you, but he could do a decent job, corner forward maybe. So there are probably certain lads maybe that would slip in with their club maybe easier than others. Certain lads, it suits them not to be able to play adult hurling at the moment, in my view. Then there's other lads who are kind of thinking he's probably ready for more than some of his contemporaries at that age. But then I was looking at, you look at someone like Colin Reardon, who had to call time on his AFL career last week due to chronic injuries. It's a balancing act here between, like, he was told by Pat O'Neill, I think when he sat before him, the surgeon, when he was 17 or 18, that like, you need to stop what you're doing far too much. So part of it is that we do need to restrict how much these lads can do, particularly at that age, because I think he was playing for 10 different teams at one stage when he was in UCD. So we do need to manage their load fairly smartly, I'd say.
Yeah, that's true. That is a story across the board of players probably playing a bit too much. The Limerick County Championship, it was round 3 of the group stages over the weekend. Napier beat Patrick's. Well, this was a fairly jarring scoreline, 123 to 12 points. Now, Keane Lynch is obviously out, but does Keane Lynch being out mean that you lose by 123 to 12 points? And obviously they were beaten fairly comprehensively in their first group as well. So it's been a tough whole season so far for the Well.
I don't know if it's had the knock-on effect, Shane, of the psychological damage of, do lads almost, is there nearly an apathy towards it all because they know they're missing? Well, saying that, like, as I said to you before, the Well have a two-time hurler deer who's out. They have the hurler deer in waiting, and then they have probably a future hurler deer in Aaron Gallan, and someone who's always in the conversation. So it's not as if like they're a one-man team, but they obviously suffered a heavy loss the first day, got back on track the last day, even without Burns or Gallan playing that well. But probably a bit of a statement from the Pierce at the weekend. I think Peter Casey got an early goal. And I think the Well have Doon up next. Doon, who are absolutely flying. So they're in a bit of bother and are going to have to turn things around.
Yeah, and Flash says Aaron Patrick well missing other players too. At least they were the first 2 games. I think I remember Kevin O'Brien was out as well, and we might have mentioned that Thursday.
Jason Gallan and Kevin O'Brien definitely got transfers to play in the States. Whether they were back to play club games, I'm not 100% certain, but they definitely did get transfers approved because I saw their names on the list, and they would be 2 big losses if they were missing games.
Yeah, all the signs are that Napier are back. I mean, think of the players they have. Just go through them. Conor Boylan, Will O'Donoghue,
Mike
Adrian
Casey,
Breen,
Peter Casey,
Mike,
William Henn,
just keep
Kevin Downs. Yeah, it's Ronan Lynch, your centre back. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they have a serious panel of players.
Yeah.
Like, and they've even players that have come on the last couple of years as well. They would have been like, they were riddled with injuries when they were beaten in that semi-final last year. So they'd be going gung ho. And I remember chatting to Peter Casey about it as well. He was only just back with Limerick, so he's mad for Road. You know, Mike Casey has missed so much hurling. He's mad for Road. He barely played with the club in the last couple of years. So they'll be going hard at it, I'm sure. They know there's a window there for them to potentially get in. Like, you'd love to see probably Napier and Ballygunner in Munster at some stage, but the Limerick Championship is tricky. They're going to have to beat last year's Munster finalists in Kilmallock again, probably. They're going to have to beat a Doon and maybe have to beat a Well along the way again too. So definitely going to be interesting, but they're definitely favourites at the moment, without a doubt.
Yeah. And for the Well, things don't get much easier because they have Doon up next, and Doon are on the back of a 5-14 to 13 points win over Han at the weekend. And we keep saying it, could this be their year? Maybe it will. Maybe they'll just come to the boil nicely towards the end of the championship because they have all that quality. Darrow Donovan, Richie English, Pat Ryan, Barry Murphy. And I think that they're going to meet Kilmallock, who are obviously the champions, and Doon were finalists from 2020 in the final group game. And that will most likely determine who will get the automatic semi-final spot rather than playing the quarterfinals. South Liberties beat Blackrock. And I think Blackrock are the only team without a win now. That was 23 points to 22, so very close. Gary Spillane beat Mungret. And then Kildimo Palace Kenry beat Ballybrown. Now, this would be a fairly bitter local rivalry. And I think we have it here. I'm just going to bring up that late winning goal by the goalkeeper, and hopefully it comes up on screen just here. And it's 41-year-old goalkeeper John Chalk. This made it 2 wins from 3 outings for Kildimo Palace Kenry. So let's see it fly into the back of the net. He fairly lettered it. And look, based on that angle there, he did the right thing in that he didn't put it at the goalkeeper. He put it over towards the side, so one of the outfield players has to try and save it. There was apparently some great battles in that game. I think Kyle Hayes was up against Colin Coughlin, and Hayes got a couple of points, but Coughlin caught a couple of balls over him. Meant to be a great little battle there. I think Aidan O'Connor
Am I wrong in saying that the ball half looked like it was going over and was redirected to the net? Or was I seeing things there? I kind of thought the hurl was high, like it was just going over, and they blocked it and it was taken into the net. But I could be wrong. But
I'll bring it up again. You think that there might have been a deflection on this?
Well, it was definitely blocked anyway. 100% it was blocked.
Okay, let's see again.
I'm probably looking at. I'd say it could be Colin Coughlin's hurl actually, and I think it might have been deflected in off his hurl.
Was the red helmet there? Oh, it looks like maybe there might have been a slight little touch there. Let's look at it once more. Maybe just as it's going in. I think it might be the guy who's just beside Coughlin to the left that might have got that touch. But either way, ball ends up in the back of the net. Bit of a classic game. Like Ballybrown have been going very well, but they hit 15 wides here compared with Kildimo's 6. So that's obviously going to be a huge determining factor.
Said it to you before, Shane. I'll say it again. Doesn't matter if you're 41 or you're 61. If you can hit a dead ball, you've always got a chance to be a hero. If you can hit a dead ball, you can stay hurling till whatever age. You always have a function. Line balls and frees from anywhere in the pitch. 41-year-old keeper is the hero there, and he'd be dining out on that one for a while, I'd imagine. Just a quick one there, just on Ronan Lynch. Shane Power just said maybe Flash would have a better idea, but remember seeing Ronan Lynch play a few years ago for Napiershig and thought he was absolutely outstanding and would definitely get in the Limerick team. Flash just said back, I don't know what's happened when it comes to Ronan Lynch in the county panel. You can make the argument he's been one of Napiershig's best players over the last few years. I think if you're looking at the Limerick Championship, like over the last 6 or 7 years, I think he is definitely, if you were picking a Limerick team of the decade based on club hurling, he would definitely be on it. It's just a funny one. I know he's done a couple of interviews before, but he's definitely one of the better hurlers in the Limerick Club Championship. So I don't know if his time has come and gone with Limerick and whether he'll ever be in again on the Limerick senior hurling panel, but he's definitely a player that you would imagine there's more to come from him at county level if he went in on the Limerick squad. Obviously, you're going into a squad there that is absolutely, you're bowled over with talent, left, right, and centre. But you'd imagine he would be another good option. Maybe the idea of being a squad player maybe is something that doesn't appeal to him, but he definitely is a seriously talented player. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
I was actually marking him for a while in the 2018 All-Ireland. He's Club All-Ireland. He's got a lovely pair of hands, really good stickman, but I'm not sure if he's the type of player that Limerick want. Now, in terms of hurling, yeah, but I don't know, maybe they're looking for more abrasive type players rather than silken type players. That would be my only guess, because if you were to talk about hurling skill only, I don't think he's short on that. Just a reminder, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you get 15% off. Whether it's one of those jerseys on screen, go to the website and you'll see a whole catalogue of jerseys and zippy tops and the whole lot.
Shane, there's a couple of buttes out now. There's a couple. Did you see the new Wexford jersey? And is it a Dublin kind of a training top?
Yeah, it's a beauty. I'd absolutely recommend it now. If you were a Dub.
There's a number 14 on the back of the Wexford jersey, and you might as well just get Dorn written above the top of it. It's an absolute beauty. It's proper old school with the block white and then the 14 printed on it. Absolute beauty.
She's a cracker. And also a reminder, if you're looking to improve yourself as a coach, whether it's hurling or camogie, we've got the OurGame coaching clinic coming up in UCD Friday, September 16th, 7:30 p.m. UCD Sports Ground. €40 in. It's going to be a brilliant. It's going to be a brilliant presentation. 3 45-minute sessions from Martin Fogarty, Kieran Carey, and Matty Kenny. It's going to be on-field stuff, showing you how you can bring your team on. It's all going to be practical on-field. We're going to have some players there and all running through the drills. So that's going to be brilliant. Make sure that you sign up quickly for that, because places are running out, and I don't want people to be disappointed when the time comes. So let's talk about the Kilkenny Championship. If John Chalk was a hero at 41, Tommy Walsh, he's been on the road a long time too. and he was the hero for Tullaroan this weekend against Ballyhale Shamrocks.
Yeah, I think this was his first appearance for Tullaroan. He definitely hadn't started from him in any of the games so far anyway. Andrew Sullivan here just says as well, Owen Kelly still going strong at Mullinahone. Free sideline, striking over the shoulder from 65 metres, still has it all. He actually even strikes the ball that fast that when it goes wide, some people think it's gone into the net.
Yeah.
Brendan Cummins told a good one actually when we were over in Vancouver. Kelly is so cute. I love this. So there was consternation around that free or whatever. You know, the one that went wide. Did it hit the flag on the outside of the goal?
Yeah, against Toon,
while all this was going on, Kelly got a ball and threw it into the corner of the net and went to the umpire and said, sure, there's a ball in the net. And sure, that obviously, you know, pulled the wool over their eyes a small bit anyway. But I just thought with that, it's so smartly. You just cannot teach that type of genius. Like Richard Hogan just says here, Tullaroan with a good win v Ballyhale, dominated second, third and fourth quarters after conceding 1-5 early on. Yeah, I think they were 1-6 to a point down.
1-6 to a point, yeah.
Yeah, Mulnavat hitting form at the right time as well. So we just fly through some of the Kilkenny results there. They're finished the league stages now. So it was Tullaroan 28 points, Shamrocks 216. Garrod Dunn has been very good for Tullaroan. Still under 20 for another 2 years, I think, but definitely a player that we'll see in the senior jersey in the coming years. Clara had a big win over Listowney, 129 to 119. As I mentioned there, Mulnavat had a good win over Erin's own Castlecomer, 118 to 212. Bennett's Bridge, 17. Greg Ballycallan, 13. I believe David Blanchfield's absolutely flying for Bennett's Bridge. I'd be amazed if he's not wing back for Kilkenny next year under Derek Ling. The Bridge are flying it there, straight through to the league final now. They have Dan Shanahan as coach. O'Loughlin Gales 316, Glenmore 119. Believe that was a tasty enough game. Dixborough 212, James Stevens 14 points. On the flip side of the O'Loughlin Gales game being tasty, this was a dour affair by all accounts. Conor Brown and Niall Brazel were missing for the Village, and Killian Buckley was out for the Borough. A real city rival, clash of city rivals, but there wasn't much about this game.
14 scores each is fairly dour.
Yeah, it's poor now. And Bill Sheehan was kind of the difference. He's gone out centre forward for the Borough. He hit, I think, 2-2 from play. Be interesting to see if he earns a Kilkenny recall. Like, if you recall, going into the 2019 All-Ireland final against Tipp, Bill Sheehan was like their not super sub, but he was an impact player coming in off the bench. And I think he picked up a hamstring injury. He missed that 2019 final, never featured at all. And he's hardly featured for Kilkenny since. So going to be interesting to see if faces that were, you know, around a couple of years ago that may have disappeared in recent years are kind of called back in. Just a couple of other quick notes on the Kilkenny Championship. Mikey Carey is still involved with Gorge in the Intermediate Championship. He's kind of delayed going travelling. And there's talk of James Maher from the St. Octans Club going travelling as well. So it doesn't look like Derek Ling will have either of those two available for him for next year when he starts his first year, obviously replacing Brian Cody. We'll just go into the league is over, but there's still a league final. That's Tullaroan and Bennett's Bridge. When you think about it, Shane, and I know like the real stuff is only starting now. Tullaroan obviously won the Intermediate Club All-Ireland a couple of years ago. Like the fact that they're topping a group already, a Kilkenny senior hurling group is really, really impressive. They're in a league final, have a chance at silverware there. Shield final is Clara against the Borough. Championship round 1 is Shamrocks Ballyhale against Glenmore and O'Loughlin Gales against Mulnavat. The two county finalists are obviously in that championship round 1. And then the relegation semi-finals. It's a relegation semi-final / championship round 1. If you lose, you're in a relegation final. If you win, you're back in the championship. James Stevens against Listowney and Erin's own against Greg Ballycallan. Now, for the Village, I know it's mid-season and Ballyhale have ended up maybe in a similar position before and gone on to win a Club All-Ireland, but it's probably not looking great for them at the moment. It's probably going to be difficult enough to turn it around. And I believe John Sugru, the former Laois football manager, is involved as coach with the Village this year as well. So they'll be Seamus Dwyer, who was involved under Cheddar in Laois before. He's the manager. He teaches in Kilkenny CBS, so he knows the lads pretty well. They'll be looking to turn things around. You've seen before, it can be only small things, a victory, and maybe they're back on the road again, but they definitely won't want to end up in a relegation final. Definitely not. And it'd be funny, if they can get a win, you never know how things could move along for them.
Yeah, well, one thing about Tullaroan is they've got the best best defence in the in Group A. So of their 5 games, they conceded just 20 points a game if you convert goals to points. They scored as much as Ballyhale. Now Ballyhale, they've done this year after year where they sort of coast through the group stages and all of a sudden they get up to full speed and have everyone involved then for the latter stages. Now they won't have Joey Holan. We'll see what the story is with Colin Fennelly. Maybe he's back. I'm not entirely sure if he was at the weekend. But a wider point that I noticed about the Kilkenny Championship from the weekend is, when you were talking about the scoring between Dixborough and James Stephens, they both got 14 scores each in the game, 12 to 14 points. 7 of the 12 teams that played in the senior championship scored 1 goal or fewer, and 3 of them didn't score a goal at all. A lot of these games are very, very low scoring. Does that speak to it being a very sort of abrasive championship where it's not really all that free scoring? Like Clara and Tullerone put up big scores. O'Loughlin Gales 316, but after that it's relatively low scores. It's a bit kind of old school in terms of the scoring.
Yeah, I'd say the whistle probably hasn't been blown too often either. Was it a county semi-final or a quarter-final a couple of years ago?
8-6, wasn't it?
8-6, yeah.
Aaron's Own and Dixborough.
Yeah, like that was, like I know it was a really bad day, but probably hard enough to earn a free down there. Whether that's a sign of good refereeing or referees that just don't blow the whistle or not, I'm not sure. But like if you look at the Kilkenny County Final last year, that was really, really high scoring affair. If you look at when Ballyhale beat James Stephens in that cracking semi-final in COVID in 2020, like that was stupid scoring. Like it was 22, 23 scores plus on both sides. But I suppose maybe it's just partly to do with the fact that it's league as well, and everybody knows that it's really only getting going now.
Yeah. Antrim Senior Hurling Championship round 3. Ballycastle beat Kerry Fogs. So that was Ballycastle, the town team, we'll say, and Kerry Fogs just outside, but still in the same parish. They were up against each other. Apparently, Kerry Fogs in the 50s beat Ballycastle, and they wrote a poem about it. So the talk now is that there's a poem going in the other direction, but there's no relegation this year, so Kerry don't have to worry about that. Ballycastle are going to be against St. John's in the quarterfinal. In the other game, that group, Dunloy beat O'Donovan Rossa 117 to 16 points. So Dunloy are straight into the semi-finals. Rossa are second, and they will face Lochgiel in the quarters. Lochgiel had beaten Nevena 124 to 10 points. And Cushendall, they're through top into the semi-finals. They beat St. John's 121 to 116. So they won by 5 points there. So it's all kicking off in Antrim at the moment as we head to the latter stages. In Derry, we already mentioned Owen Rua beating Lavey 413 to 23 points. Sounded like a cracker. And Kevin Lynch's, they qualified for a 4th successive county final, beating Swatra 17 points to 16. In Down, Breda beat Ballygalgate 317 to 112 comprehensive, as was Ballycrans 421 to 10 point win over Newry. And now we come to the Offaly Senior Hurling Championship. But we'll start off in B because you had a semi-final over the weekend. Didn't quite go your way.
No, Clara had a good win over us. It's funny, they beat us by a goal in the group stages, but they were much the better team the other day. We would have been very disappointed. We never really got motoring at all. Finished Clara 18 points, Borough 9, and the scoreboard probably flattered us. And saying that, we had 2 goal chances at the end and could have snatched a draw. It would have been a real smash and grab job because, to be fair to Clara, they were much the better team. They even had Clara and Offaly's favourite son, Shane Lowry, watching them in O'Connor Park. It's amazing. He's some man.
Did he talk?
Yeah, no, he didn't talk. He hasn't played hurling in a while. He prefers to strike a white ball around the field for a lot more money than any of us hurlers are getting. But more luck to him.
What about passion? It's about passion, not money.
He's some man. He always manages to get to all these games. It's almost like his timetable seems to be measured around when Clara could be playing senior football or when even Clara could be playing intermediate or senior B hurling. They had a very, very good win over us. And the other semi-final was just absolutely ridiculous scoring. It was on the other scale completely. Finished Tullamore 327, Kilcormac 131 after extra time. That was an absolute belter of a game. So it's Tullamore and Clara. Basically, the 2 clubs with their first teams beat the 2 clubs with their second teams. And then, obviously, the senior semi-final pairings are now known after the quarter-final action at the weekend. The champions are out. Rhinus beaten 115 to 113 in Burr yesterday. Was listening to the last few minutes of this on the radio. This is probably Shinrone coming of age, really. Been threatening something like this for a while. they've always been nip and tuck with Rhinus the whole way up, minor, 20s, 21 and senior. These kind of groups are the lads that are now, 26 or 27, and this is a big result for them, and it's a massive opportunity for them in the semi-final. So you have Belmont against Shinrone in one semi-final. Belmont have never been in a senior final. Shinrone haven't been in a senior final, to the best of my knowledge, since the 1960s. So you're going to have somebody completely new in the county semi-final. Belmont won by 7 when they played in the group stages. But yeah, like yourself, like that's motivation, if anything else, to turn it around when they meet again. And how often do you see a team meeting a team in a knockout game that they played in the group stages and the result is flipped? So that's going to be a really, really interesting game and a massive opportunity for the two of those. And we had a good win over Ballinamere in Tullamore after the Senior B game on Saturday evening, 3-17 to 11 points. Comprehensive now, I have to say. It was impressive, polished performance. Luke Nolan at 1-4. He'd be an awfully under 20, be one of our real up and coming players. Very, very good. Niall Lyons, another player in attack who impressed. And from our point of view, Owen Cattle didn't rip it up. He was good, but didn't rip it up, and we still put up a big score and we're very mean at the back. So we play Kilcormac in the other semi-final. Kilcormac beat us a point, 17-16 when we met in the group stages. So yeah, that's going to be really, really tight. Very, very hard to call. Very, very hard to call the final pair, and very, very hard to call who's going to win it. Kilcormac, based on experience in the last couple of years and having won county titles, are probably still favourites going in. But you wouldn't be surprised if we ended up in the final. You wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, it's very hard to pick the parents. I'll put it to you that way. Very, very difficult. But Rhinus, who were going for 4 in a row, are gone. That's really the big takeaway of the weekend.
Yeah, and that's a Rhinus team that nearly beat Ballyhale last year.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing about it, Shane. Yeah, like their best performance throughout the whole run was that Leinster semi-final, and you're thinking you can build on that in the following year's championship, but it doesn't always work like that. Ken Hogan obviously stepped away. He's involved with Lura now, who are in the knockout stages, intermediate championship in Tipp. And it just hasn't worked out for them. Barron beating us comprehensively in a group game. They just haven't been the same team this year, and weren't the same team yesterday, definitely not.
Yeah, River Power says Paddy Cadell is not sure enough in possession for an inter-county back. Too lackadaisical. Looks like a footballer trying to hurl, hence why more than one manager has picked him in midfield. Can't say I agree with that. Porter says, do those jerseys fit triple X? They might do. Go to orgaretro.com. I'm sure it's plenty of sizes are accommodated.
Porter, it sounds like a man who drinks a bit of porter. But Porter, there are jerseys of all sizes there. All sizes. This is a medium, and it's actually not too tight. But some of the ones are, Shane's one is a large, bet onto probably an extra large frame, I would say.
It's an extra small, the way I wear them. Size 28 togs under it.
It's funny,
John O'Sullivan.
Ger Oakley used to wear size 32 togs when he was playing with Offaly, and he looked like he was they were basically like the old cotton togs, where you could basically see like your entire leg almost.
Not to mention the rest of it, they were barely legal. John O'Sullivan says, Na Piarsaigh are the strongest club team in Ireland, with everyone fully fit. Now, this is something I was wondering, based on football as well. What we've seen from Kilmacud yesterday, like Shane Walsh is now with them. They obviously have Paul Mannion. Without either of them, they got to an All-Ireland club final last year. The likes of Darren Mullen, Craig Diaz, Rory O'Carroll, who went up and scored 2 goals. Like, I'm wondering, what is the strongest club team across either code that we've ever seen, maybe? I mean, you could make a case for some of those Ballyhale teams. You could make a case for your Burr team. There's plenty of other teams out there. But I'd say Kilmacud, what they have right now, surely they're unbackable favourites for the All-Ireland Club Championship.
I wouldn't say. No, it doesn't work like that, Shane. You know,
yeah, but they've got Paul Mannion and Shane Walsh.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's never just as simple as bringing 2 lads into your team. Mannion's obviously Kilmacud player, born and bred. Walsh is class, but it's never just a thing of just parachuting a player in, I don't think. But the fact that they were able to get as far as they did with, let's call it spades, but a lot of unheralded players, or players that maybe weren't on the tongue of GA followers around the country, it's definitely a huge bonus for them going in. But it doesn't, All Irelands are not won on paper, unfortunately, because and county finals aren't won on paper either. So I hear what you're saying. I probably would have the Ballyhale team of maybe 2 years ago, when TJ was a little bit younger, when Colin Fennelly was like absolutely destroying teams. I probably put that team up there. When you look at the two of them, look at Adrian Mullen, Paddy Mullen, Brian Cody, Owen Cody, like they nearly had a starting Kilkenny forward line in their midst, and had a brilliant goalie in D Mason as well, Joey Holden, an All-Ireland winning captain, all-star full-back. I'd probably put that Ballyhale team from 2020 up there with as good as any club squad there has been.
Ooh, would you put it ahead of the club team that they had maybe a decade before it, when they were actually winning All-Irelands at senior level with Kilkenny? Because fair enough, you did name a team that, you know, has a lot of Kilkenny starters, but that Kilkenny team wasn't winning All-Irelands. Whereas when Ballyhale were flying it 10, 12 years ago, whatever year you want to pick out, they had a starting team that was winning Kilkenny All-Ireland titles at senior level with Kilkenny as well. So maybe you could make that case too.
Shaw, Henry, Nick Fennelly, TJ, Colin Fennelly. Yeah. We actually beat Ballyhale in 07 as well, but they were missing Henry and Shaw, to be fair.
Yeah, I had to drag that out of you. What about like maybe that Portumna team? People might come up with options and other codes as well. Let us know what you're thinking. So
and just to be clear, I would have the Burr team of 02, 03 right up there as well, right up there. And plus, it's different. Different how many lads, like sometimes it can be a benefit not to have a load of lads playing county. Burr wouldn't have had a load of lads playing county at the time, but they were as seasoned a club team as there was. Same with Portumna, outside of Ollie and Joe and Damien Hayes, they wouldn't have had that many other lads playing for. Owen Lynch would have played a bit, Chunky Hayes would have played a small bit, Kevin Hayes would have played a bit, but they weren't like mainstays of the county team. So sometimes it's actually a benefit to have, you know, a really seasoned club team and a heap of like deadly club hurlers.
Yeah, true. The Kildare football quarterfinals were on at the weekend, and Naas beat Sarsfields. I think this was they met last year, and there was a huge swing in the game. But Sars were 2 points up in the 58th minute. They had a line ball, and didn't they gift it straight to Naas? That man was fouled for a penalty, and it just turned the game. And Naas ultimately won by 114 to 111. So that's a tough one for Sars.
Oh, definitely, Shane. And I believe at one stage in the second half, Naas were actually down to 13 men. And Sarsfields, from what I'm hearing anyway, Sarsfields held on to the ball a lot, almost like the team that were playing with 13 men, from what I heard anyway. But there was a big swing here, and Eamon Callahan, the leper, was, you know, turned the game in the second half. I think he kicked 7 overall. He's in as performance coach, I think, with the Carlow footballers under Niall Carew for next year. But I didn't want to mention them earlier, but when you're talking about teams that just needed to win one to get the steal, to be able to win games coming down the stretch, this game with Naas is a classic example. It's not a game they would have won other years. There's no point in saying any different. They wouldn't have won this type of game other years. But now they know what it's like to win. They know what it's like to get all the way to a Leinster club final, let alone win even an All-Ireland intermediate hurling crown as well. They know what it's like to win. And they know what it's like to eke out a game. And this is exactly what they did here. Sarsfields will have a lot of regrets, though.
Yeah, a tie, they beat Clogher Rinco 318 to 112. Selbridge saw off Johnstown Bridge 1-9 to 8 points. And Clane beat Eadstown 315 to 1-9. You were saying about Conor McKenna. He has a runner coming this Sunday. You might expand on that.
Yeah, he does. He has. He's probably a lot of people don't know about Conor McKenna, who's obviously an All-Ireland winner with Tyrone. His dad, Pat, trains horses up in Dungannon, and Conor actually dreamt about being a jockey before he dreamt about being, you know, a footballer, even with Tyrone, or an AFL player. So he actually rides out in his dad's yard in Dungannon most mornings, and they have a runner in, I think it's called the Bold Lad Handicap on Irish Champions Weekend. On this Sunday. Ampersand is the name of the horse, and they think it has a decent chance, and he's going to be heading back to Australia very, very soon. So he'd probably like to go back with his pockets with his pockets full of bookmakers' money. But I wasn't on the show last week when that news broke. I have to say, from what I'm hearing, there's nothing, you know, sinister at play. But it's mad to think the amount of guys that have not been involved with Tyrone since they won in All-Ireland, and the amount of lads that will not be involved in 2023. It's crazy to think it. I can't remember another winning squad that has lost that amount of players. And without him now, he obviously got his All-Ireland, but, you know, one of the reasons why he came home was homesickness, and that 2 years later, he's heading back. So just, I don't know. It's a strange one for me. Tyrone as a whole is a strange one for me at the moment, but you'd still be expecting some sort of kick out of him next year. Because generally when they were winning All-Irelands in 03, 05, 08, the physical toll it takes to play their style seems to have a serious effect on the year after. The year after that, not so much. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Maybe it's even a mental toll of going again to that same degree. And I wonder, will any of the players that opted out this past year, 2022, come back in 2023? But yeah, generally they've kind of done well the year after they've kind of failed to defend the title. We'll move on to the Donegal Championship, and obviously Donegal are still waiting to see who's going to be their manager for next year. But in only their second year back in senior championship, Éireann are going to the quarterfinals with a perfect record from the group phase. They beat Milford 2-9 to 2-8. And I was just looking at Alan Foley, journalist up there. He was doing a bit of a roundup, so I'm just going to go through that. And he said St. Eunan's ended up topping the 16-team group by virtue of their 111 to 1-6 win at McCool's, and they'll play 8th place St. Michael's in the quarterfinals, who won 13 points to 10 at Knowles. Kilcar pipped Bundoran 2-15 to 3-11. And they're against Killybegs next, who beat Clockaneely 2-6 to 10 points. Michael Lynch's
Jason Byrne's a happy man, Shane.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've had Jason Byrne on the show plenty of times. Éireann, they were given us a scare, obviously, in that win over Milford. Naomh Conaill beat Guidor 114 to 19, and Glen Swilly, Michael Murphy's team, they beat Ardra 114 to 110. So just to go through the quarterfinal matchups: St. Eunan's against St. Michael's, Kilcar against Killybegs, Éireann against Guidor, Naomh Conaill against Glen Swilly, I should say, and the relegation playoff semi-finals are Bundoran against Milford and St. Knowles against Ardra. So plenty going on there in Donegal. Will we go to the complete...
It's so quiet. Who is going to be the next Donegal senior football manager? It's so quiet. And I know it's like an omerta there where, number one, they wouldn't release who the candidates were because they wanted to respect the privacy of the candidates, which I just think is a bit mad. I understand where they're coming from, but that's number one. And then number two, they're not going to release the names on the committee, the selection committee. So I believe Malachy O'Rourke, who has been mooted in some circles, is now out of the mix there. But it's going to be fascinating to see who the next Donegal manager here is. Flash says there, obviously, bring back Jim McGuinness. By all accounts, Gaelic football does not seem to be on his radar at the moment. He's with Derry City, and that seems to be where his attentions are at the moment. But it's going to be really, really interesting. And the GA Show podcast had the same comment in there. Same could be said about Limerick football manager job. Nothing has been said since Billy Lee has stepped down. My inkling there would be that one of the outgoing management team potentially could step up, and they obviously do have a former intercounty manager in Maurice Horn as part of the outgoing management team. So I think that would make a lot of sense, particularly going into Division 2. But there's a lot of managers' jobs there now that people just don't seem to want them, or either that or it's just been kept very under the radar.
Well, look, I think this might be good for both the competitiveness of hurling and football. How about Paul Kinnerk go and take over the Limerick footballers? Forget about the hurling. You've enough done there. And then that might open things up in both codes. Wouldn't that be? Who wouldn't be happy with that?
I tell you something, Shane. I genuinely think that's only a matter of time. But I do think he probably realises what's going on in Limerick hurling at the moment, and he might never get a chance to do something like this. But at the end of the day, he is a football man. He's putting a lot of time into the next generation of Limerick footballers. And I'd be very surprised if he's not involved with a Limerick football senior squad in the next 5 to 6 years. Be very, very surprised. And I think his take on football, seeing what he has done with hurling, would be fascinating. And I also think as well, there was a kind of a commentary there, maybe in 2020, 2021, that Limerick were maybe not that good to watch, which I think was not correct at all. I just think they were a lot better than the opposition and were mauling teams. But if you go back through this year's championship, go through like the best games in this year's championship. Limerick Cork was decent. Limerick Waterford was very good. Limerick Tipp was very good. Limerick Galway was brilliant. Limerick Clare in the Munster final was class. Limerick Kilkenny in the All-Ireland final was deadly as well. So I don't buy any argument that people would say that Limerick aren't good to watch, or that Kinnerk and Kiley have changed hurling for the bad or anything like that. Far from it. And I think his take on modern football will be fascinating.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's important for hurling to have good games. Obviously, just in a microcosm for itself, it needs to be good in isolation so that people continue to be interested and want to go to the matches. And obviously, we need look, the calendar might change a little bit just to give games a bit more breathing room. But anyway, I think another reason to say that is because the Premier League is unbelievable at the moment. Like, the quality of games in football is unbelievable. So I think the GAA needs to have entertaining games. And like, I know Liam Kearns came out talking about football being not that entertaining to watch. He'll be the Offaly manager next year. But when you have teams that are of similar level playing against each other, like, football can be incredible as far as I'm concerned. Gaelic football, that is.
Yeah, no, I think I do agree with you. When teams of a similar standard are playing against each other, like, look at the best games this year. You would have done well to predict who'd win between Galway and Armagh, and we had, one of the greatest games in a long time. I said it before, and I say it again. Eamon O'Hara said a couple of weeks before that he thought this could be the game of the decade, and I was just like, is he having a laugh? And he was fairly on the ball now, in fairness. If you go back through the OurGame archives, that's there for you to hear. Then you obviously have Kerry and Dublin was a really good semi-final, and the All-Ireland final was very good as well. Probably before that, like, do you remember any game really before that been really competitive and really good? I don't really. I have to say, I just can't get over watching the ball going across and back, and there've been 13 or 14 men inside the 45 of the defending team, and it just can be so ponderous and slow. I don't particularly enjoy that. I don't particularly enjoy the attack and mark either, particularly if a lad is catching it in his chest. That doesn't really appeal to me, being honest with you. But I'm not sure what you do or what changes you'd make, but I don't think football is particularly appealing on the eye at the moment, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, look, as I said, when it is played well, I think it's absolutely sensational. But anyway, that's a point for another day. Richard Hogan, just jumping back to the Kilkenny Championship, says, Will would think Tullaroan are a great bet in Kilkenny. Would be a bit worried for O'Loughlin Gales against Mullinavat, timing their run nicely and could have a shock in them. And Cassius King added in that John Walsh is lighting it up for Mullinavat. Richard Hogan adds, Mullinavat are a very physical team. Lee Fennelly gives a real presence up front. Willie O'Dwyer still going well, strong defensive unit with the two Malones. So there's plenty more on that Kilkenny Championship. So keep the comments coming in.
John Walsh is the last man to give Sean Finn a real scutcheon in that 2014 All-Ireland minor final. Didn't he hit 2-5 from play? A good bit of it off Finn. He's obviously taken that lesson. He's obviously taken that lesson and applied it fairly well the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah. Cork Football Championship, St. Finbars, who got to an All-Ireland semi-final last year and got to extra time against Corofin that day. 2-13 to 10 points win over Carbery Rangers. The goals from Killian Myers-Murray and Ethan Toomey. Éire lost to Carrigaline by a couple of points. Valley Rovers 2-10, Ballincollig 4-14. So Ballincollig's 10-point win sees them qualify at the expense of Douglas, who beat Mallow by 2-11 to 2-10, and that's on point difference. So that's a tough one for Douglas to swallow there. Clonakilty, they lost by 7 points to 8 to Nemo. 3 wins from 3 for Nemo, beating last year's finalists here. And Castlehaven, obviously the club of the Hurleys and Mark Collins and so on, they beat Newcestown 3-12 to 1-9. The quarterfinals will see Nemo meet Carbery, Mallow against Castlehaven, Ballincollig against Carbery, and into the semi-finals it'll be St. Finbars meeting Mallow or Castlehaven, and the winners of Nemo and Carbery will meet the winners of Ballincollig and Carbery. I actually know that there's something wrong there somewhere along the line. There's Carbery Rangers and Carbery, so yeah, that's the way it's going to work out. And in relegation, Éire are going to beat Newcestown. So do you want to bring us into the Dublin Championship?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, just on Cork, I know the Bars are Munster champions, but they have a fair few hurdles to scale to even retain their Cork crown. They're going to have to beat probably Castlehaven in a semi-final, and they're probably going to have to potentially beat Nemo in a final. And we've seen the quality when the two of them came up against each other in the group stages. So I know they're reigning Munster champions, but it's anything but a formality that they're going to get out of Cork. And obviously the Dublin Championship was on TV over the weekend. Your boys, Coola, had a great win. They won the Senior B last year. So they had a good win over Ballymun. Actually sends Ballymun out of the Dublin Championship, which you'd have to say is a big surprise at this stage. Luke Keating hit 1-4. His goal was all important. 3 points from frees. Niall James.
He has a lovely left foot, does Lukey. Always had.
Hard bait, a nice left foot. Here's one for you. Hurling or football or soccer, who is the sweetest left foot you've ever seen? I will take this off and I lead it off and say Georgie Hadji had a left foot. Oh my God. It was a thing of beauty. The other one I would remember, and it's not on the Georgie Hadji level, but Patrick Berger had a left foot to die for.
The ones coming to mind now, I'm just actually thinking of Maisie skillful. Are you talking about like lads who can hit what's called a thunder bastard, like Thomas Hitzelsberger, or are we talking about a wand of a left foot, like, for example, Georgie Kincladze, former Man City player, if people might remember him? He was unbelievable.
What a player. When you're talking about the thunder, whatever, John Arnorisa would definitely come to mind, but Georgie Hadji could hit, he'd score from outside the box, but it generally wasn't like power. It was placement and class. Obviously, Messi is probably the greatest left footer that we're ever going to see. He obviously had both feet. He was ambiguous, as Delboy would say. He could hit off left. He could hit off left and right. But Hadji is definitely one I remember very fondly. And he's definitely a Michael Meehan from a football point of view would have been that wand of a left foot as well. Now, Luke Keaton is in really good territory here at the moment. No pressure.
Morten Gams Pedersen, the former Blackburn and Norway player, says A. Sully 180. Christos Stoichkov of Bulgaria had a boomer of a left foot, said SSRI. Van Persie, yeah. But you know what? Like, Van Persie scored that brilliant volley. It was like a 90-yard ball over the top, and he volleyed it into net at Old Trafford. Was it against Arsenal or Villa or something like that? But it's actually his header against Spain in the World Cup that he'll always be remembered for, despite the fact that he scored so many brilliant ones. And maybe an unbelievable flying volley against Charlton one day. Gareth Bale, not a bad left foot on him either. Look at the comments flying in. Jarlath Fallon.
Just on that,
Ian
Andrew Sullivan actually named his young lad Jarlath after Ja Fallon. There you go.
Unbelievable stuff. Are cool on for the double, Shane? I'd like to think so, but no idea. Rafinha, best left foot in Brazil. So look,
better left foot than Roberto Carlos? I don't think so.
Well, Bobby Carlos has been mentioned here by Fergus Butler, but Roberto Carlos had it. Like, he scored that unbelievable free kick at Le Tournoi in 1997. Like, it was unbelievable outside of the foot. But a bit like Ronaldo, as in the Portuguese Ronaldo, his record with free kicks was pretty terrible. It's just now and again he'd score an unbelievable goal. But in general, he was no Ian Hart as far as I'm concerned.
Ian Hart, it's funny, like, Ian Hart wasn't power. He was all placement, wasn't he? Beautiful, beautiful free kick taker. Robbie Brady obviously has a wand of a left foot as well. As regards other footballers with a left foot, I always really liked Ollie Murphy, I have to say, and he wasn't power either. He was placement.
Kieran MacDonald,
obviously, and Joe Brawley.
yeah. Actually, Flash just said Kieran MacDonald there as well. So yeah, that'd be very disappointing for Ballymun-Kickham's to be knocked out in the group stages. 5 points for Dean Rock, one of those from a free. Fiach Andrews with 4 and Dylan Keating with a couple. So like you said, Luke Keating with 1-4, Niall James with a goal, Dara Spillane, obviously related to the Spillanes of Temple No, Conor Callan with a point, and Owen Kennedy with a point there as well. Kilmacud battered Temple No.
1 second now, 1 second. I think there's a comment that, or a comment from a manager that we really need to talk about. That was made over the weekend. I think it's a really, really interesting comment as well. Brendan Hackett made it. He's the Ballymun manager. So he just said here, just give me 1 second and I get it up here. This is obviously in the wake of the defeat. And from a journalist point of view, some of the best stuff to get out of a player or manager is at, when tensions are up. But he just said, Dublin have probably got the best of the Ballymun players and we're left with what comes back afterwards. What do you make of that? That sounds like a very frustrated manager who is trying to pick up, some of his biggest and brightest players at the end of really, really grueling county campaigns where they're carrying knocks and things like that. There's a lot of frustration there. They obviously at times would have had 5 to 6 involved with Dublin. Paddy and John Small, Philly McMahon, James McCarthy, Dean Rock, Evan Comerford. A lot of frustration there, I sense.
Yeah, I think Evan Comerford's had an injury. Now, there has been this thing that over the last couple of years where Sean Curry, who's a former county goalkeeper, that he would have been playing for all the league games, and then Evan Comerford comes back, and do you drop him, but do you leave a current county goalkeeper on the bench? So obviously that's not ideal for them. But I feel sorry for a manager in a way, because he's playing for most of the year without these players, and all of a sudden he has to try and throw them all back in and put a team together. So it's difficult for him. And I can understand that frustration, because it's not like that's not necessarily the same thing that other managers are going to come up against. Now, Kula, of course, have a couple of players that are on county panels, the likes of Conor O'Callaghan. But you'd imagine he'd be fairly fresh and mad for a road because he suffered an injury during the season with Dublin and wasn't available. And there are one or two others, the likes of Peadar O'Cofaigh Byrne, Michael Fitzsimons, who had a great game here. But yeah, I kind of get it. Like, those players are going to be kind of going to the well. Some of those players are a little bit older. So if they're going to the well all year for Dublin and they're probably playing a lot of league games, getting back from injury, like Dean Rock isn't 25 anymore. So he's gone through a hard season and then has, and I'm not saying he played poorly, he then has to go out and try and do it again for the club. James McCarthy's got God knows how many games he's played over the years. And then all of a sudden he has to come back at maybe 31 and try and go again. So I do feel sorry for him. And there are plenty of managers in that position. But I mean, what do you do otherwise? I mean, is Dessie Farrell supposed to only push them 90% for the year and then I'll give him back a bit fresher? It's just kind of the reality of it. It's the lay of the land. It's unfortunate, but you just kind of have to go with it. Sometimes having all those county players is the reason that you get over the line. Like Ballyhale continue to win despite those players going hard all year with Kilkenny.
Yeah, successful teams. No more than like Ballyhale, shall we say. If you're really successful in both, in both inter-county and club, there's a potential that you can be going year round. Something's probably got to give at some stage. It probably gave for TJ around the Leinster club final stage last year, and his performances with Kilkenny probably suffered in the early part of the county season. So there's a bit like, when you're successful and you're on the road a lot, you're bound to pick up more knocks, you're bound to pick up more injuries. Like, I don't think it's any coincidence that Con has had a couple of injuries in recent years, just for the sheer level of volume of training and games that he was playing there for a while. And he had a really good run of it, but it was only natural that he was going to pick up bits and pieces at different times and miss games. But it's probably a consequence of success, probably a consequence of being on the road for that long. But like, it's funny, I remember chatting to Kilkenny supporters who would have been almost thinking when Ballyhale were going well, particularly would say, just say 10, 11, 12, they would have been nearly hoping, and this is purely from a selfish Kilkenny point of view, that Ballyhale would be beaten in the Kilkenny County Final or beaten in the first round of Leinster, so that Henry, TJ, Colin Fennelly are rested coming into the county campaign. Do you know what I mean? So there's kind of there's not a greediness. It's just you want to see your team be best equipped, and Brendan Hackett has obviously agreed that he probably doesn't feel that his team was best equipped potentially over the last couple of years just because of the amount of traffic that's gone through these guys' legs.
Yeah, and how we didn't mention David Clifford when we were talking about the left footers, especially because we'd mentioned him at the start of the show. Bit of a disgrace from us. Unbelievable left footer, most graceful player in the game. And probably
and when you look at them, how many good left footers are there? Oh my God. I think it used to be a bit of a rarity. Like, I remember like with Hadji back in the early to mid 90s. I don't remember that many really classy left footers at the time. And it's almost, maybe it became in vogue, and lads who were potentially right-footed in their early years just started practicing with their left foot or something like that, and just started getting really good with their left foot. But there's definitely more like really exquisite left footers now than ever before, I'd say.
Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that. Martin Gams Pedersen, who A. Sully 180 mentioned earlier, he was a right footer when he was a younger player. So he always played with his right foot. And then he was told, I think it was by his father, you need to start developing your left. And then his left ended up becoming his dominant foot. That was actually, so he ended up being very good on both, but his left foot was absolutely incredible. So it's just kind of interesting the way that panned out. So let's talk about Paul Mannion as we're talking about good left footers. He had a great performance for Kilmacud against Temple Oak Sing Street. Scored 9 points, 4 of those from play. Rory O'Carroll, another left footer. He came up from the back and scored a couple of goals there. Darren Mullen scored 1-3. Shane Cunningham, 4 points.
And it's funny you say it, Rory O'Carroll is left footer. I don't remember him kicking the ball throughout his Dublin career, and I don't mean that as a slight, but that was just his role. It's funny, I wouldn't have known he was a left footer, genuinely.
Do you know that Crokes had 12 scorers in the game against Temple Oak Sing Street? Like that. That's what I talk about when I say they've got the best squad going between either code, I would imagine, at club level at the moment. I mean, look at the players that we're naming. Paul Mannion, Rory O'Carroll, Darren Mullen, Shane Cunningham, Tom Fox, Dan O'Brien, Killian O'Shea, Craig Diaz, Hugh Kenny, Keane O'Connor, Ben Shovlin, Shane Walsh. That's not to mention there's another county player or two panellists that I haven't even named there.
Shane Horn would be around the panel.
Horn, yeah. So like the quality they have. For Temple Oak, Ger Vickery scored 1-1. Niall Scully scored a couple. Lorcan O'Dell, Killian O'Gara and Fintan Dignan, they got on the score sheet as well, but it was pretty comprehensive. The other game in the group saw Ballantyre beat Raheny 113-18. As you already mentioned, Coola beating Ballymun by 2-8 to 11 points. The other group game saw Ballyboden St. Enda's beat Clontarf 116 to 7 points. Boden topped the group. Group 3, Nafina beat Skerries 415 to 5. St. Jude's lost to Thomas Davis 2-8 to 2-9. And then in Group 4, Castleknock, they beat Round Towers Lusk 111 to 6. And Lucan Sarsfields beat Whitehall Columkill by a point 114 to 113, which means the quarter-finals are going to be Castleknock against Thomas Davis, Nafina against Whitehall, Kilmacud against Coola, Clash of the Cash, and Ballyboden against Ballantyre St. John's.
Well, I'm glad you said it, and I didn't have to bring it up.
Well, I don't have any cash, but in 2012 when we played in the county final, that's what it was billed as online.
Yeah, I like that. Any chance to bring up something like that, because the country folk would absolutely hate it. Anyone outside of Dublin would absolutely despise that sort of a thing. Look at these boys thinking to have all their money.
There's so many other fixtures to go through. Like we have all the Cavan results, Clare, Louth. It's all kicking off. But let's talk about Westmeath, because Anthony Cunningham, he obviously was over Roscommon, but he lives in Athlone. So now that Jack Cooney has departed, in some ways it seems almost like an obvious appointment if he's interested.
Kind of does, Shane, and I tell you why as well, because Desi Dolan is heavily involved with Moore Community School, and Anthony Cunningham even would have been involved in their senior football team there as well. And there's a link. There's a link there from his time in Gary Castle too, who he brought to an All-Ireland club semi-final. I would say it probably makes an awful lot of sense. There's big talk of potentially Desi and John Keane taking it on. Maybe that would be with Anthony Cunningham as manager, and Desi and John Keane staying on as coaches / selectors. But that would be, they probably need a bit of continuity, in the sense that Desi and John Keane were both involved this year under Jack Cooney when they won the Tailteann Cup. But obviously Anthony Cunningham can bring a lot to the table there. Westmeath are Division 3 side starting out in 2023. He's applied his trade at Division 1 football in 2 of the last 4 years, I think, and they obviously won the Division 2 title this year. So he'd bring a lot to the table there. It's probably just with Anthony, it's probably a matter of, does he have the energy to go again and throw himself straight back into a county job not long after stepping out of Roscommon? The only thing, and I was chatting to Liam Kearns the other day, just as part of he was talking as part of the Offaly Association in Dublin Golf Classic that was played last Friday. And I was just thinking, it's the 5th of September now, right? Offaly can't go back training officially until December the 8th. So it's actually 3 months. Like it's a fair whack of time that you have to get things organised, maybe get lads on programmes individually and stuff like that. But the inter-county window has shut down an awful lot of where you're actually on the road a lot. And I remember was chatting to Darragh Egan about this, and he just said those long, lonely November nights, you don't really have them anymore, or you're not supposed to have them anyway, technically under rule. So
they're still happening.
show me your proof. But I just think it's funny that we are quite a bit away from the inter-county season officially starting. So if Anthony is looking for a bit of downtime, potentially could be named as Westmeath manager next week or 10 days, get his team in place, quietly go about watching club football championships, but the fires won't really be stoked really for the guts of about 2 months at least.
Are you hearing much about the Offaly hurling job? Because last week there was supposed to be a press event with Liam Kearns plus and other being the Offaly senior hurling manager, but that's obviously been pushed back, that decision. Yeah,
very close to being taken across the line, Shane, from what I believe. And Liam Kearns' backroom team with the football is very close to being announced as well. But I think it'll be someone we both know fairly well, and he may or may not have been on the show before. Who knows?
We've had a lot of people on the show.
That's like a whodunit. I'm expecting comments coming in now, and could be anyone. We've had a lot of people on the show, to be fair.
Garodo Grakon says, Clash of the Cash. He enjoyed that one. Also so used to Coola v Crokes battling each other in hurling. Be interesting if this is the start of a dual derby rivalry between the two clubs. Yeah, very much so. So let's see about the Mayo Football Championship.
Shane,
Westport.
just quickly on that. How many dual players have Coola got at the moment outside of Con?
Outside of Con, there's I think it's Michael Conroy, Diarmuid O'Flynn, and I'd need to look at the team from yesterday because I didn't see quite enough of the match.
Is Niall O'Callaghan a hurler as well? His younger brother?
No, he doesn't hurl. He certainly doesn't hurl senior anyway.
Okay. It's just you're wondering because I think it was Crokes last year had 2. Would I be right in saying was it 2?
Yeah, I think players? It was only 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So at least it's not, it's not that big of a deal, shall we say? For it's not, the same body of players playing over and over again.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about Mayo. Yeah, there was some big results over the weekend in Mayo. It's first round of the championship. Westport battered the Nail 323. Well, they hammered the Nail really. 323 to 3 points. Tommy Conroy not being around is obviously going to hurt the Nail badly. Balladreen, they drew with Ballina Stephenites. That was 1-7 to 10 points. Gary Moore beat Davids 210 to 7 points. Ballintubber off Mayo Gales by 116 to 7. Knockmore posted 3-8 to Ahamore's 11 points. 2 goals from Darren McHale and another from Aidan Orme. Belmullet beat Balla 3-8 to 210. Very tight there. And Brafey saw Clare Morris 116 to 10. In Meath, Navan O'Mahony's beat Curraha. Trim soft Moynalvey. Summerhill beat Nafina. St. Columkills had 2-11 to Screens, 16 points, so 1 point win. Wolftones beat Centralstown. Ballinabrackeysoft Dunboyne. And Dunamore Ashburn beat Simonstown 3-11 to 7 points. Do you want to take over there with the Monaghan Championship?
I surely will, yeah. So a busy weekend in Monaghan again. Scottstown beat Ahamullen 10 points to 1-4. Clontibbret 11 points. Ballybay Pierce's 1-7. Desi Mohan was out playing. He won a Chicago title with Pádraig Pierce's. He's back in tow there. I think they actually won the North American Championships with Pierce's in Chicago as well. And obviously Conor McManus leading the line for Clontibbret as usual. Trua and Inishkeen finished 9 points apiece, and Castleblaney Fogs beat Carrick Macross Emmets 114 to 7. In Sligo, Calry St. Joseph's beat Tubbercurry 19 to 9. Shamrock Gales 217, Curry 111. Coolani Mullinabrina 4-9, St. Farnans 116. That was a 23 points to 19 win for Coolani Mullinabrina. Cooler Strandhill 11 points. Drumcliff Ross's Point 11 points, and in the Wexford Championship, Killenear 114, obviously home of the great Matty Ford. St. Anne's Ratangan 112, Shelmaliers 2-8, St. James's 10, Gussaran O'Reilly's 1-8, Cross the Beg Mallymurn 10 points, Starlights 2-8, St. Martin's 1-8, Glenbarntown 4-8, Halfway House Bunclody 1-8, and Castletown 214, Sarsfields 210. So they've played their hurling now at this stage, and now they're getting stuck into their football championship. They were round 2 clashes in the Wexford Football Championship.
Yeah, Wicklow then on Toker 213, Blessington 14, St. Patrick's beat Rathnew 212 to 6 points, Baltinglass off Avondale 210 to 8, and Arklow Geraldine's Ballymoney 10, Bray Emmets 1-6. Might as well talk about Oisin McConville taking over Wicklow. And the big thing I thought is, number one, it's a bit of a trek, obviously going all the way from Armagh down to Wicklow. And part of me was thinking, seeing as he'd been managing Inniskeen and Monaghan in recent times, I thought maybe he'd be in the conversation for that job. And I know Ger Brennan had been a name closely linked and the county board had been onto him, but obviously that seems to have fallen through. But for McConville now, looking at the games that he'd be playing in Division 4 this year, they're going to be up against Carlow, Leitrim, London, Laois, Sligo, Waterford, Wexford. Every time that he goes from Crossmaglen, I presume that's where he's living, it's going to be a fair trek for him to get to pretty much all of these games. He's going to do some amount of commuting this coming year. Yeah,
he sure is. And it's funny, this wasn't one that was on anybody's radar, really, because it looked like the 2 lads that took over from Colin Kelly, who did a good job, I have to say, looked like they were going to stay on. I wasn't under any other impression, particularly after Meath beat them, I think, Meath beat them in the Leinster Championship and Offaly beat them in the Tailteann Cup. And I didn't think a change was coming. But I kind of did mention on this show the fallout of the backroom teams that weren't involved in the successful ticket in Mayo. I had a feeling that a lot of guys would be in demand in other places. So Oisin McConville was part of Ray Dempsey's ticket. And to be honest with you, it's it's shown a lot of ambition from a Wicklow point of view to even make the call in the first place. And it's obviously geographically, it's not exactly ideal, to be fair, for Oisín, but he's probably, he's talked the talk on the Sunday game, and he's willing to go and put his hat in the ring now in an inter-county job, probably not the most glamorous job in the world. And now when you look at it, the amount of lads that are not going to be involved in the Sunday game, regular faces, Colm O'Rourke, Pat Spillane, Kevin McStay, Oisín McConville. You look at the hurling side of things, Davy Fitz obviously not going to be involved. There's probably a couple of other names. There's a couple of other names even that I'm forgetting from the hurling point of view as well. But there's going to be a lot of new faces there as well. But I'd have to say, fair play to Oisín for putting his head on the block there. And as you said, they're probably starting from Division 4, so he has a bit to work with there. And getting up from Division 4 to Division 3 would be a start. They obviously did it under Davy Burke. They saved their bacon, beating Tipp, didn't they, in 2021, and then were relegated this year. But he's a bit to work with there. And in that Blessington side, there was plenty of young talent as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on there. Interesting to see who he has with him as well, and whether he takes anyone potentially from Armagh with him, and someone to keep him company potentially in that long drive.
Yeah, true. Just go through the final few counties then. We kind of skipped over slightly earlier. Cavan, Mullinahorn beat Lavey 11 points to 10. Kingscourt Stars saw off Gowna 212 to 114. Ballina 317, Butler's Bridge 114. Cavan Gales beat Lacken 310 to 115. Crosserlock 324, Larry United 1-6, and Rammer drew with Killygarry 11 points to 2-5. In Clare, Cratloe beat Lissy Casey by a couple. Aero Gennesoff, Carfin. St. Brecken's beat Milltown Malbay, St. Joseph's. Kilmurray Bricken beat Clondegad 111 to 19. Ennistimon 1-8, Doonbeg 9, and St. Joseph's Dura Bearfield 3-9, Kilmahill 2-8. And then the final county that we haven't discussed so far, Nave Martins, the Jocks 16 points, the Dreadnoughts, their local rivals 1-9. St. Pat's 11 points, Newtown Blues 1-6, and St. Bride's 110, Mattock Rangers 1-8. We have done some amount of coverage of games today, have we not?
A fair whack of games there now, in all fairness, and you're lucky you went back and read out those Clare results, or Derek Lynch would have your head in a plate, as all those Clare lads would, because them boys are only waiting for the opportunity to cut you to bits.
They certainly are.
And they don't even need an opportunity a lot of the time. They don't even need the opportunity.
They certainly don't. Just a reminder, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you get 15% off. A reminder, we do have the OurGame coaching clinic coming up in UCD on September 16th, Friday evening, 7:30 p.m. There are only a few tickets left. It's €40. You're going to have great sessions with Martin Fogarty, Kieran Carey, and Matty Kenny. They're all going to do 45-minute sessions. We're going to have players there so that they can run some drills just to help you, whether you're a hurling or a camogie coach, to bring things onto that next level with your team. So that's pretty much it for the show, unless there's anything else you want to touch on.
No, all good, Shane. Yeah, no, we're flat to the mat at the moment, aren't we, with various club action, and we obviously have a Waterford final coming up the weekend, but we're really getting to the meat and drink of the various championships now. It's we're coming to the knockout stages where there's no comeback, so things are really going to spice up over the next while.
Yeah, Gerodo Gograkon says, hey, Shane brought it on himself. This is with the Clare people with his 2013 was a fluke rant. Great show again, lads. Thanks a million for the coverage as always. By the way, if you want to catch us on Thursday, patreon.com/OurGame is the place to watch it. Really would appreciate any support you can give us over on that platform. Michael, we'll do it again.
Cheers, Shane.